Beyond the Waves is a Hail Hail Media production. It may contain sweary words and adult situations may be discussed. If you're in the company of underage Tims, turn off the show now and listen back later. If you'd like to get in touch with the show, email us at beyondthewaves67@gmail.com. You can also reach us on Twitter at BTW Celtic Show, or check us out on Facebook and join our group at Beyond the Waves. Hail, hail, and keep the faith. Welcome to the Beyond the Waves Celtic Football Show. My name is Graham Wilson. Celtic 0, Inverness, Caledonian Thistle 1. And another loss at home when we're hot off the heels of a Champions League tie midweek. We look completely listless, completely void of any ideas, any sort of creative spark. Pretty stale in terms of tactics, formation, same players being trotted out, and lots of excuses. And if you are present on Twitter right now, there's a lot of finger pointing, there's a lot of infighting, there's a lot of vitriol, which is not much fun. And the excuses are plentiful, but at the end of the day, the blame and the responsibility really lies with Neil Lennon. He is the manager. He is in charge. He calls the shots. He decides who's going to be on the park. He decides what tactics we're going to employ. And ultimately, he also runs training. He makes sure that these players are going to be ready to play, whether it be in the SPL or the Champions League. He's the one that's responsible for getting the players ready, both mentally as well as physically. And we've seen a pattern over the past 6 weeks or so, really since the Barcelona ties, where the players have come out and just look completely disinterested, especially in SPL ties, either home or away. At this point, our home production is just without explanation. 7 goals so far this season at home. It's shocking to think about that statistic and then to realize that at this point last season, when this side was in crisis, we had 4 more points than we currently do, and we were 12 points behind the now deceased Rangers. And there seems to be a mentality now of regressing to the mean, and I think this is really reflected throughout Twitter as well, where there's a mentality going about with tweets and retweets and everything else, and I'm so sick and tired of Twitter. I got to be honest with you, I'm just tired of it. I need to walk away. But there's a mentality of we're still at the top of the league, we still have a game in hand, and everybody's just complaining for nothing. Well, that's the sort of mentality that I'm perceiving within this side right now, not just amongst the players, but there is a bit of a lethargy with regard to how the players are coming out, what they're displaying in terms of their preparation, and some of the substitutions today. I am just at a complete loss to explain. I'm just wondering, what is the mentality? What is the thought process that's going into trying to get results here? I think that to a certain extent, Neil Lennon is trying to fit players into the side, and I think that sometimes his loyalty to certain players really is costing the team. I mean, we saw Scott Brown come on as a substitute today when we were chasing the game. Really, I mean, a half-fit Scott Brown, and that's being kind. Coming in, and we needed to turn the face of the game and try and get a goal back, and why that would be employed when you have Lasad and Miku on the bench, as well as Dylan McGeoch. It's just beyond me. I understand that Kyle needed to come off. He had a yellow card, but the loyalty to certain players, and then the thought process that the players are tired. Well, if the players are tired, then there are options on the bench. We have kids that are hungry, that are looking to step up and to show their worth and to stamp their place in this side. And it's the complete polar opposite of what we are seeing from this starting 11 that Neil Lennon seems intent on starting each week. We see a mentality almost of they expect and know that they're not going to get dropped. So there isn't that same level of hunger. There isn't that same level of intensity, and it's costing us. And another 3 points gone at home. And things need to change, and they need to change fast. Skype lines are open. You can add us as a contact at Beyond the Waves and phone in and let us know what your thoughts are today. Obviously, want to give a shout out to Paul Larkin. It's his book launch for By Any Means Necessary, bestseller on Amazon, and well worth it. It was an honor for me to write the introduction to that book, and I think my writing is absolutely superb. So if you haven't sampled that, get out and purchase a copy and check it out. So all the best to Paul and to all the Bampots at the book launch today. I'm, in spite of the results today, I wish I was there. I'm really jealous of anybody that's present at the CSA there. I heard it's absolutely heaving. So all the best over there, and I'm sure it's going to be a fantastic night out. But before we do anything else, let's say hello, as always, to the Rev, phoning in from Perth Amboy, New Jersey. Hail, Rev.
Hello.
Rev, you watched the game today, and it's like a broken record. It's become something of a broken record on this show, where we talk about similar tendencies and similar culprits leading to these just inexcusable and unacceptable results. What are you left feeling after this game? I mean, it seems as though we're watching the same thing over and over again. It's the same car wreck and different on different roadways, but the same things leading to the same accident over and over again. It's like it's going in slow motion. I mean, it's just wearing on me. What are your thoughts?
No, I feel like a broken record because it happened this week as it has last week and the week before, where I wake up a little bit late, a couple minutes into the game. And by the time I get, a feed up and everything, it's, 30 minutes in, still 0-0. And I just get that sinking feeling like, here we go again,
There's just no spark. There's nothing that would lead you to have some hope and to look for, like to expect, okay, you know what, we're doing the right things. It's going to come. It's more of the frustration at, not having that sort of cutting edge. And we know that Inverness, Caledonian Thistle, whatever the hell you want to call it. Some people call it Cali. Whatever. Yeah, exactly. The Chukters. We know that they're going to pack the box. We know that they're going to play an ultra-defensive style and try and frustrate us, especially through the middle, and we don't exploit the space down the flanks. I think that we're really missing James Forrest as well as Emilio Ezagiri. We've talked about that over the past couple of weeks, and that was certainly reflected against Benfica midweek, and we really didn't harry them or ask too many questions of them, and it's just frustrating.
Yeah, for me the game wasn't wide enough. We just seemed, like you said, that we know what they're going to do. We know their game plan. It's going to be defense. It's going to be 10 men behind the ball, and still it's just feed it to Chris Commons and take a shot a wide shot from outside the box. That was our game plan today, and that wasn't working, obviously. So yeah, we for all the shtick that Forrest gets, for being a little weak physically and going down easy. He's still an integral player to the team, and that doesn't mean that me personally I don't like him. He's still very good, and we do need him and we miss him. We just want it's just when that criticism comes, it's a constructive criticism, I think, because we just want him to be stronger. Not saying that he's shit and shouldn't play or anything like that. So he's a game like today, he's obviously sorely missed, where he can just run down the flank and then cut in across the box. Something like that was severely needed. Patty tried to do that a couple times, but it was too late. And on the flip side, yeah, Izzy is needed to do basically kind of the same thing, just race down along the left flank and put some crosses in, hopefully to someone in there, maybe Lasad. Maybe haven't really seen how good his head is, but maybe he can provide some headers from crosses. This week I think was worse than the last few weeks.
It was,
because maybe it's just kind of like a domino effect, and it feels like it's compounding. So as time goes on, it feels worse and worse. But today just felt like there was nothing. Like once the goal went in, I was, it's against, Inverness, and we're like, the goal goes in what, the 64th minute or something like that, and we're like, game's over. That's how bad is that?
I wasn't ready to chuck it at that point, but it's just it leaves you so much more work to do from there. You're still hopeful. You're still, because we've seen this from this side multiple times, not just this season, but in seasons past under Neil Lennon, where we go a goal down, but then we fight back and we see out a result. And in contrast, the 1-1 wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, and it could have conceivably been 2-0 to Inverness. But
right.
The point that you bring up about Izagiri, I think, is paramount with what we're going through right now. In transition, that there just seems to be a lack of that creative sort of spark, that attacking, especially from the midfield, and we've seen it happen from Chris Commons, but I think Chris Commons is being played out of position far more commonly, no pun intended, than he's played through his strong suit, which I think is through the middle or even maybe on the left-hand side. When Neil Lennon puts him on the right-hand side, he doesn't have the pace to beat a man, and he's far too left-footed in order to have confidence in trying to take the ball wide, draw some defenders out, and then swing the ball in. He oftentimes cuts it back, loses possession, and that breaks down any sort of momentum we have. Now, the critique against Izagiri throughout his entire time at Celtic has been his lack of consistent service into the box from out wide, and I'll give you that. No question, his service is atrocious at times, but what he does give you is phenomenal technique with the ball at his feet to facilitate that transition, that drive. He can carry the ball down the flank with the ball at his feet, get past players, and then draw players out of position, opening up space for some of our midfield players. And we're lacking that. Even with Matthews out there, you just see it repeatedly where he'd take the ball down the flank and then cut it back. And that would just completely slow everything down. And when you have a striker who's out of form just now, like Gary Hooper is, who's not making himself available, not making any sort of runs to free himself up, to free space up, and to drag defenders around, it just clogs things, and it's just completely frustrating. We're seeing the product of that on a repetitive basis. You're right, Rev. It is worse. It's getting worse because we're trying to do the same thing time and again. It's not effective, and it's wearing on the players. They're not disinterested because they don't want to win. These are professional footballers. They want to win, but they're frustrated because they're not having success. And it's up to Neil Lennon to figure out different ways in order to do that. I was a bit distressed to hear some of the comments from Neil Lennon after the game today, where he mentioned if the fans are not happy with him, then he'll go. I think that no matter what the context is that he framed that in, you can take it on one end. A lot of people are reacting that he's throwing the toys out of the pram, and it seems a bit petulant. There's another side that says, he's merely reflecting the reality that is, if the fans aren't happy with him, then the board's going to take notice and his job is going to be untenable. I think both sides, to a certain extent, are credible, but it was just a comment that didn't need to be made, especially with the institutional bias that comes against Celtic. What do you expect the papers tomorrow to say? Of course they're going to make this into a huge deal, and this is the type of press that the support doesn't need, the club doesn't need, the players don't need. The players are frustrated, and now we have this to contend with. It was really unnecessary. It was unfortunate, but we're joined now by Luke Beasley. Luke, you're live on the Beyond the Waves Celtic Football Show. Hello, thanks so much for calling in. What are your thoughts at this point?
Good evening, gentlemen. Firstly, I have to say that I'm probably even more gutted about this than you are, seeing as my mum and my little sister are Cali fans and are going to be rubbing my face in this for the next probably about 3 years until this happens again. Firstly, I wanted to say I wasn't panicking as quickly as everybody else was. I could see the tactics that Lenny was trying to go with in the first half. I thought having effectively 3 players that we could play up front against Cali, who are well known to pack the box, to be very, very organised in defence, I thought that was a good move. What seemed to desperately worry me is that when it went wrong, there wasn't an ability to find out what wasn't working and alter it for the better in a more organised way. I mean, for example, today, right? I mean, Commons, he got into good space, he was good at peeling off defenders, but when it got to that final touch, it just felt like everything went wrong. And to deal with a situation like that, I think you need to change who's going through the centre, to change the shape of the team. But that wasn't done. The shape was kept entirely the same, but the left and the right back were pushed far too far forwards, which means that when it comes to chances on the break, which Cali are excellent at, there weren't enough boys tracking back. Furthermore, bringing on Paddy McCourt, now I have never denied and I will never deny that with the ball at his feet, Paddy is one of the most talented players at the club. Unfortunately, he doesn't use his loaf. To be honest with you, gents, I'm starting to suspect he doesn't have a loaf. I think he's a lot like a Disney's bakery, right? He just runs into blokes all over the shop, doesn't think to look back, doesn't think to pass. Lassard, when he came on, he was fine, but he's still not quite grasped how the Scottish game works, that you can't just let the ball run through the middle to go out onto the wing. Someone will jump on that. Furthermore, Brown, I mean, just what was the point? One of my neighbours, God love her, she's very, very old, she's got a very bad hip, and it looks like she's got one leg shorter than the other. Now that's what Scott Brown looked like today. And fair play to you, man, and he's a great talisman and he's a great captain, but if he can't walk in a straight line, then why bring him on? Why not, I don't even know, why not push Mulgrew that little bit further forward and bring on McGeoch? I mean, that would have been just a sensible thing to do. McGeoch's hungry, he wants it.
Exactly.
Brown's just in pain. He was, of course he's not going to be on his game. Of course he's not going to be able to catch people. Of course he's not going to be able to, spray passes right. Of course he's going to turn the ball over. It's just incredibly frustrating. I don't know what happened after about the 40th minute, tactics-wise.
Yeah, it's a good call there, Luke. And you bring up the Brown substitution. I'll refer to it again. I think that Neil Lennon just has a blind spot for Scott Brown. I mean, to a certain extent, it's for good reason. He's pointed out the fact that he just absolutely harries and just makes life miserable for opposing midfielders, the players that he goes up against. But in the context of where we were at that moment in the game, that's not what we needed. We were chasing the game. We needed a goal. Why, like you said, why bring on Scott Brown, a half-fit Scott Brown that's not going to lend anything to attack and to try and bring in a goal? When you have a player like McGeoch, who's a more dynamic player, can utilize a bit of his pace and a bit of his creativity, that would go a far stretch closer to getting that goal that we needed than bringing Scott Brown on and, playing Scott Brown for one additional minute. If the goal is to have Scott Brown ready for Spartak, every minute that Scott Brown plays is putting him in a less likely spot to actually play against Spartak. I mean, this is a degenerative hip injury. He's putting his career at risk by playing. I put equal amount of responsibility on Scott Brown himself. He needs to step up and say, right, I'd like to go out. I'd like to play. I'm the captain. It's killing me to do this, but I have to step aside because my presence in the team not only is hurting the side, but it's hurting my own career. I think it's time. The comments after the Benfica game, and you saw it when he came off against Benfica. I mean, he was just, I think he even mouthed to the bench. He just said, "I'm fucked." And when he came off, and then they mentioned that he's going to need surgery and he'll be out for 10 weeks. Well, it was just it was implied that he was going to be shut down, and 10 weeks from now we'd expect him back. Well, now we're going to carry him for another 2 weeks. That will further delay his re-entry back into the side. I mean, we're talking about his availability for the League Cup final as well as the Cup final, and now by extending his time, being available while not fully fit, we're putting into jeopardy whether or not he's going to be available for those very important games that we'd like to have him for. The other thing, Luke, let me ask you this. The substitutions, not just in this game, but over the past maybe 3 or 4 games, and especially in the SPL, have been just mind-boggling. And then we saw it again today. Tony Watt is really our only on-form striker at the minute. Gary Hooper is well off the boil. Samaras, for me, is never a striker. His positional discipline is paramount. He needs to stay wide left in order to be effective. But Tony Watt was brought off to facilitate Paddy McCourt coming on. When for me, I would have picked Samaras, Hooper, or Commons, because all 3 of them were absolutely worthless. What is the mindset there? Is Neil Lennon trying to play Gary Hooper back into form? Or it's certainly to the detriment of our ability to score goals and to win games.
I think there's firstly, I must say I work fairly unsociable hours, so I work a lot of evenings and weekends. So I've not seen I didn't see the Benfica game, for example. I didn't see the St Johnstone game a couple of weeks ago. I've not seen every game and every substitution. So this will be an informed guess rather than something I've scientifically proven. But I get the impression, particularly with bringing on players like McCourt, bringing on Brown, leaving Hooper on the park for as long as possible, despite the fact that he's clearly not fit and not in form, that there seems to be pressure either to have as much leadership on the pitch as possible. Guys who've been at the club for a long time, are well known, are in some way cult figures, or to have big draws on the pitch every week to keep people coming because I absolutely hate saying this, but because the Rangers aren't there. And if the first is the case, I don't see any justification for it because, well, look, if we were to take off, not to have Brown in today, or if we were to take off Sammy, who had the captain's armband, you can give that to Mulgrew. I mean, Mulgrew, born and raised Celt, he's come good for us the last 2 seasons, player of the year last season, etc., etc., etc. He has the potential to, be a captain, be a leader on the park. If it's the second, then I don't think that almost the idea of Celtic as a spectacle, especially when the spectacle never works out, but the on-paper spectacle Celtic should go against giving the fans what they want, which is firstly attractive football and secondly winning football. So, I mean, those are the sense that I've made of the substitutions in the SPL over the last few games that I've seen. Obviously, I'm ready to be proved wrong because there's a few that I haven't.
Yeah, no question. The only sort of silver lining in this is that we have, about a fortnight, 10 days time until the Spartak game comes, and that's going to be certainly the most important game of the season thus far. Hopefully, we can get James Forrest back, and it looks like Izagiri isn't far away from becoming fully fit. I think they're really the keys to getting off of this plateau that we're stuck on right now, which is just with too many similar profile players that don't offer enough spark, that don't sort of grab the game by the scruff of the neck, and to compound that, there seems to be you touch on the tactics that were employed in the beginning with Commons trying to with 3 dynamic attacking players up top, and I would even argue with 4, but having a 4-4-2 out there with Samaras and Commons both in the center of the park. We know both of them like to drift more centrally. Then you facilitate that, or you sort of exacerbate that with Hooper dropping really, really far deep. It congests things right in the middle of the park so that it almost looked like there was an element of confusion. And really nothing was done, like you mentioned, to alleviate that, to try and get a bit more space that would open up and have truly targeted roles for each player, in terms of where they're supposed to be, what exactly they're supposed to be doing. As the game went on, it seemed as though that there was a bit more panic going on. And you mentioned when it's not working, you need to try different things. Well, it seemed as though, especially, and this is no surprise, as we got in the second half, it was almost like we were trying to do everything all at the same time. And, that's going to do nothing but make things even more disjointed. And, unfortunately, we couldn't come up with it. Poor finishing, poor link up. And I think some heads dropped, and that certainly cost us. But it's very frustrating, Luke. Before we let you go, these comments from Neil Lennon after the game. I mean, what do you make of that? Him coming out and basically saying, if the fans want him to leave, then he'll go. I mean, I don't think nobody in their right mind is calling for Neil Lennon to be sacked at this point. I mean, obviously, he's going to get some stick. These performances are unacceptable. He himself has highlighted that, but certainly he needs to be accountable for that. What I want to hear from my manager after a performance like this, on the tail end of a run like this, is, you know what? This is on me. I didn't have the tactics today. I didn't have the players ready to perform. We're going to get this sorted out, and we're going to come out next week. I'm going to fix this. Coming out and saying, if the fans want me to go, I'll go. I mean, it just wasn't needed.
No, I think there's something else going on there, and this is, I don't want this to sound like a conspiracy theory, but this is how business works, right? There has been a lot of criticism of the club by their own fans because of what's been happening with the Green Brigade, and this has become very, very public. I mean, you noticed even on Celtic TV today, they couldn't hide the fact that a large part of the stadium was empty, that it was considerably quieter than it usually is. So this is becoming obvious. And now, if your organisation is under pressure and you're a figurehead for that organisation, you try and take the blame on yourself, and especially if you care about that organisation as much as Neil Lennon cares about Celtic. You try and say, well, look, there's a problem here. Look, it must be me. And if it's me, then we'll do this. We'll do this responsibility. I'll take it, right? I'll take this one. I'm not saying he will leave, but I think Neil Lennon knows that the fans aren't calling for him to leave. I think he also knows that somebody needs to stand accountable for what's obviously a loss of support for the club itself in relation to the back room, and I think he feels he should be the one doing that. I think he's very manfully sticking up for an organisation that shouldn't be stuck up for, but I'm afraid to say I do believe he's obscuring and obfuscating the issue.
Yeah, good call, Luke. Thanks so much for calling in, and we'll catch up with you soon, all right, pal?
Cheers, mate. Take care. Bye.
So that's Luke calling in and offering his piece. I know we had Gaffney calling in. I think he's at the Bangkok book launch, and I want to hear from him.
Oh, yeah, so he called me before we started. He said he was going to call about a half hour in.
Okay, well, Gaffney, if you're listening, give us a call now. I'm trying to keep it at one call at a time so we can minimize the echoes and the technical issues and background noise and so on and so forth. But, Luke brings up a good point there where, knowing... putting Neil Lennon's comments into the context that is the most cynical, which many people are, including myself, just doesn't make sense. It's just so out of character. And I think that, once sort of the haze of emotion after a tie like this clears and we get, the full clarity in terms of what he meant. And this is just my assumption, it could have been a cynical comment, but I think that, what he was intending to say was probably something along the lines of, he's the one that is accountable for this. And if the fans aren't happy, then, he's going to be the one that goes. But, just the way that he put it, and especially on the heels of what was visible, on the Celtic TV feed, as well as I'm sure that the television feed, over in Scotland was, the fans in the main stand just behind them, giving him a bit of stick, and then him reacting. There isn't a manager in the world, aside from living legends that aren't going to be criticized by their own supporters after a bad string of results. That's common throughout. Neil Lennon isn't special, and exempt from accountability, especially from the supporters that pay money to turn up on the day and feel frustrated. Supporters are entitled to voice their displeasure if they want. And Neil Lennon stepping up and saying, well, if they're not happy with me, I'm going to leave, or at least projecting that image. It just made a bad result, and the feeling from a bad result even worse.
Right.
And I hope that the clarity, it's worked out exactly what he meant by that. But it's tough. I mean, this is a bad feeling. There are games where we lose, and there's mistakes made throughout where I'm just angry, and I'm certainly no less angry today. But it's just I don't want to say apathy, but it's just like I'm just worn down.
Well, you add that to I don't know if you saw. I know, excuse me, a lot of other people did yesterday. He was on Twitter a bit and engaging with fans, and a lot of people just saying, like, bringing up the Green Brigade, and he just kept saying to everybody, don't take it out on the team, still show up and support the team, and things along that line, and not really, what's the word I'm looking for? Not really being like a mouthpiece for the club in the, like a spokesman in the, they didn't do anything wrong type thing. But, I can understand, he's fighting for his players, and I respect that, and I'm glad he does that. But at the same time, like, he's got to let the fans do what the fans do.
Well, and just be a bit more tactful when you're expressing that. I'm a bit surprised at how it's delivered, but we're now joined by the Gaffer himself. He's reporting live from the Band Pop book launch at the CSA. Gaffer, hail. Hello.
Hail, I'm calling for the Band Pop book launch, and I'm just here to pass the phone on to Paul Arkin, and he'll give you more information about the book launch, how it's gone so far tonight.
Ah, very good.
Hello.
Oh.
The green and white writer himself, Paul Arkin. This is Graham Wilson.
Do you remember the time we had homosexual sex in that room in Philadelphia?
Oh, Jesus. Typically he reserves this for his books, and he just hides them, in very pragmatic places, so that they're tucked away, and the devout reader can find them. Now he's going to bring them presently to the show. I'm glad that at least you haven't forgotten it.
Yeah. No, I think about that night every night of my life.
Well, I'm glad that I'm glad that you carried it with you, Paul. It was a very special time. It's really helped my CV.
It was chlamydia.
That's what penicillin's for, pal.
Well, listen, I can't stay long, but I want to ask you one piece of advice. How do we get rid of Josh Gaffney?
Well, there's two.
It's like Bean Man.
Well, the first thing, don't let him have any Monster Energy drink, especially after 5 p.m. And then, secondly, probably just hand him a microphone. And just watch him race for the door.
Yeah, that's true. Like,
give us
he's sporting the worst moustache I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah, I think he's probably not the only one. I might be in that club as well. Hey, Paul, give us a sense for what the scenes there like.
Well, at least we can see yours.
True. I don't hide out.
The scene right now is. Did you see the scene is like there are people piling in from everywhere, shaking hands and all that kind of thing. What's about to happen is in about 7 o'clock, 2 o'clock your time, Joe McKenna's going to start us off with a couple of songs, and then I'm going to speak, and then there's going to be a Q&A, and then there's going to be the Wakes are going to come on and take the roof off the place, as well as, of course, the Parrots buffet.
Fantastic. And if you're attending or if you're on the way to the Band Pop book launch, make sure that you bring the hand sanitizer because there are not going to be any pish-stained hands allowed near the buffet.
Absolutely. Okay, well, I need to go, but I'll hand you back to your friend and landlord, Mr. Josh Gaffney.
Paul, goodbye. All the best. Have a wonderful evening.
Cheers. Hello, Graham.
Hello, Josh. Do you have a minute to give us? Do you have a minute to give us your take on the game today? See what I mean?
I didn't actually get to see it, so I can't really comment on it that much.
Oh, okay.
But I could kind of see a bad performance coming. I could, when I seen it was 0-0 at half time. But I'm a wee bit disappointed to get the result. But I'm joined by 2 other people. I'm joined by Frank, from the Bailey's Boys, and James Cameron from the Celtic Network.
Give them the phone. Let me talk to them.
I'll pass on to James first.
Good evening.
James, you're live on the Beyond the Waves Celtic Football Show. How are you, pal?
I'm doing brilliant, Graham. How are you?
Fantastic. I wish I was there with you, partaking in some of the Buckfest, but maybe that'll have to wait another day. Were you at the game today, James?
No. Well, I'll tell you what. Yeah, I was actually. Me and the wife managed to sneak in for the last 15 minutes. We were trying to time our arrival at the Celtic Social Club for Paul's Do, and we happened to pass Celtic Park with 15 minutes to go, and I banged the door at the entrance I used to come out of, and this guy opened the door and I went, "Look, we've left, and we've left our season tickets to my nephew, we need to get back in." So the guy let us in, and we ran up the stairs and watched the last quarter of an hour, which was rubbish.
Yeah, it certainly was. It certainly was. Well, it's definitely a good timing to have the book launch tonight to take your mind off of that performance for a little while. I'm sure it's going to be a fantastic evening. Give us
Graham, the big thing was the book launch tonight. I mean, fucking again, we'll win plenty more.
Yeah, good stuff, pal. It's still top of the league, still with the game in hand, and there's plenty of time to sort it out. It's just it's frustrating.
There's plenty of time after Christmas, before Christmas, whenever. My main joy is the fact that we know we're playing in Europe after New Year.
Yeah.
That can only be an education for the young boys we've got. If we make the Champions League, fantastic. If we don't, then we've got more experience playing somebody else. So, I'm happy.
Very well put.
Pardon?
Very well put, sir. I couldn't have said it better myself.
Aye. It's just, they're progressing, it's taking a while, setbacks like they are, we just couldn't get it starting drop. Just one of these things.
Yeah.
Other games will play fantastic. I've watched the Barcelona game at Celtic Park about 6 times. And no wonder. But the thing is, the team were absolutely fantastic. They stuck to their task, they kept their shape. And I'll put you back on to Josh now because I believe things are starting to kick off here.
James Cameron, have a wonderful time tonight and enjoy yourself, all right? Give everybody our best.
I will. God bless you, mate.
Cheers. Right. So we will let Josh go there. A lot of you can hear the goings on in the background, and reporting live from the Bandpop book launch. That was a bit of a treat, and I'm sure that they're going to be partaking in the revelry, and it'll be quick to forget the performance today. Wish I was there, because it's going to take a lot more than that, in my daily monotony, to sort of forget about it. We tend to dwell on, what happened, and it's such a contradiction between, when we have one of those sparkling performances, and it's so exciting, and it makes the rest of the weekend so much better. And when we have, just a performance like today, I mean, it just really drags things down, and it leaves you wondering. It leaves a lot of questions about, where we go from here, where we're going to go upward from here, how we're going to improve, and it's frustrating. Help, Rev.
I don't know. I don't know if I can. I mean, the season is over. Worried. I still think we're going to pull it out. That's not even close to a concern for me right now. Do I think we're going to finish with more points than we did last season? I don't know. I don't think so. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? In the long run, does it really matter? In the long run, I don't think it's a bad thing. I think that's good for the Scottish game overall. However, and I think you said this, towards the beginning of the season, the the board is going to, since there's, no other team in Glasgow in the SPL, the board wants Celtic to finish with more points than we did last year.
Oh, no question. They want more. They want to see an improvement. And being 1 point ahead, at this point in the season is not good enough. People can talk about, we're top of the table and we have, a game in hand. Well, again, we were in crisis this time last season, and we had 4 points more than we do now. And people want to talk about, and laugh about, the SPL needs a strong Rangers. Well, this team is playing like they need a strong Rangers, because out with having Rangers in the SPL, they regress to the mean, and they act like, they just can't be bothered. And, so-called meaningless SPL ties. I'm getting a tweet in from Paul Cassidy. He says, you slag Neil Lennon and the players, but I bet you weren't when we beat Barcelona. And then he puts hashtag get off his back glory hunters. Well, let me tell you this, Paul. You can't carry the Barcelona result forever. The Barcelona result had sweet fuck all to do with the performance today. It had absolutely nothing to do with the performance today. And I think that there's a mentality going through this team, not just with the players, but also the manager, that is trying to merge the capital from the two Barcelona ties throughout everything. Where now all of a sudden, players are undroppable and the manager's untouchable. And if anybody dares criticize him, he threatens to resign. That's the problem. I half wish that we didn't beat Barcelona at this point, because we've entered into a tailspin. And I have absolutely no idea how to recover from this without some serious changes to the starting 11 and the tactics employed. And Neil Lennon has demonstrated absolutely zero interest in doing either. We're now joined by Snake Plissken, all the way from the friendly confines of Slovakia. Hey, Snake, I'm mid-rant here, and I'm trying to simmer myself down. What were your thoughts today, and what do you make all this?
Well, hail, guys. Hail, Jim. Hail, Rev. Like you, I'm fed up looking at this, to be perfectly honest. I mean, a few weeks ago, I called up when I was having a party, and I was like, oh, forget it, doesn't matter. It's happened too often now. Yeah. And people are now beginning to get really, really fed up of it. I mean, it's all right for... Well, it's not all right for me. I bloody pay to watch Celtic. I pay for Celtic TV. And I'm paying to look at that, and I'm paying a lot less than everybody else that's going to the games. And they're getting shortchanged with these performances at home. They've had the pay on top of the Champions League. Champions League, fine, they're getting their money's worth in the Champions League because the team's giving basic effort.
Well, here's the question, and you touch on this exactly, and I feel, and Rev and I were talking about this, we feel like a broken record where, we're talking about, well, it's just one game, it's early in the season, and, it doesn't matter. I mean, look at how brilliant everything is with the Champions League. How many of these games can we pass by and drop 3 points at home to teams that we should absolutely slaughter? How many of these go along? And then, what is this mentality of no one is allowed to critique the manager or the players, if they have an off game or if they have, God forbid, a string of off games? I don't subscribe to that. There's a lot of back and forth going on in the message boards and Twitter and wherever else where, somehow if you criticize a particular player or you criticize the manager, then you're not, a real Celtic supporter. Well, I'm sorry. When I watch the game and I see clear shortcomings happening, and I want to talk about them, I'm going to talk about them, okay? I never called for Neil Lennon to get sacked. I never, I'm pointing out what I see is going wrong at this moment. And make no mistake, it is going wrong. I don't care how many times we beat Barcelona. I don't care where we are in the Champions League just now. Yes, I want with every ounce of my being to absolutely gub Spartak, have Benfica get slaughtered against Barcelona and have us go into the knockout stages, hopefully get Arsenal and do them. But right now, we have Arbroath coming up, next weekend. We have Hearts midweek, and I don't know, which way's up. That's what I'm concerned about right now.
Right. The Celtic team and the Celtic manager deserve tremendous credit for what they have done this season in the European stage. They're in the semi-final of the first cup of the season. They deserve credit for that because the two League Cup performances at Celtic Park were, by and large, very, very good. Take away that, in the league away from home, Celtic have had some exceptional performances at New St Mirren Park, up at Inverness. Last week at Pittodrie was a strong, competent performance. At Celtic Park, you cannot count more than one game where Celtic have been vastly better than the opposition. And that was the only game I can think of is when we played Dundee. Dundee were toothless, and Celtic just showed them, we're the big boys in this league, and you guys are really a first division team playing in the top league. Other than that, the performances at home for our crowds, our home crowds who are diminishing, have not been good enough. And I don't give a damn about Sevco, Rangers, whoever the hell they are. They're not important. The important thing is people are not coming. One reason's financial. Second reason is they're looking at something that they're getting bored to tears looking at. A performance that isn't good enough on a regular basis. Now, I'm not calling for Neil Lennon. I'm behind Neil Lennon. And I don't think he should have said what he said, but that's his right as an individual.
Yep.
But the point is, Neil has come out 2 weeks ago against St Johnstone. He said the players are tired. And the same bloody players have played the next 3 matches in a row.
Exactly.
Which doesn't make any sense to me. Charlie Mulgrew needs to be dropped for a rest. He needs it. Scott Brown, we've spoken at length about this. He is not able to do this, and he needs to go for that operation. We beat Barcelona without Scott Brown. Let's make that clear.
Well,
and then,
I mean, you think about his overall career. This is every game that he plays, he risks having to retire. Think about this. He's going to have the surgery. He's never going to be the same player again. He's just not. Okay, that's the reality. It's a sad thing, but we need a dose of reality as it pertains to that. Now, whether or not he actually can come back and play football again is really in the hands of himself, Neil Lennon, and his doctors. And somebody should have stepped up and said, this is the best thing for you. 2 months ago, somebody should have stepped up and said, right, I know you want to play. This is the best thing for you. We need to take care with your health and with your career. And nobody did it.
Yeah. I mean, the first 2 Champions League games that Scott Brown played at home and in Moscow, he was excellent. Mm-hmm. But since then, he's looking worse by the week. I don't mean in terms of his effort or his ability. It's just a physical drain on the man. And that's a big problem for the team. Kyle, I thought today was good. I thought he was one of our best players today. And I thought Ambrose had a decent game as well. And Lustig was okay and all. Other than that, the problem for me is we're looking at the team week in, week out, and if you're getting 3 players or 2 players who are playing really, really well, and the rest are passengers, we're going to have more of these discussions. And Neil Lennon, if he'd been out today and played a team that consisted of Tony Watt and Miku up front with Assad, Dylan McGeoch, Philippe Tvardzic, Joe Chalmers at left back, if they'd played all that and we'd lost, people would have went, all right, we lost, but it's the kids, and it's the reserves, and we're trying to develop them, and there's a bit more flexibility with that.
And there's a thought process in it as well, which is completely absent from what's going on right now. Like you said, just now, a very good point. 3 weeks ago, Neil Lennon comes out and he talks about the players being tired. Haven't seen any sort of squad rotation. People talk about Manchester United, some of the other big clubs in Europe. They're not having any issues, managing their league play and balancing it with the Champions League side because they rotate players in and out to suit the opponent and to suit the occasion. And Neil Lennon plays the exact same players who are tired. Not only that, he plays the exact same tactics. It's that flat 4-4-2 where our midfield gets overrun, and when we do have the ball, there's not enough of a phalanx to crack open an ultra defensive side. And that's what's concerning to me at this point vis-a-vis Neil Lennon is there's a situation that I'm perceiving where ever since this Barcelona tie, it's like he's sitting back on his laurels, and persisting with this same sort of layouts, start to finish. The players come out looking the exact same way. The formation looks the same. The tactics look the same. The players are the same, and nothing changes. It's insanity.
Well, I mean, I watched the game with a great deal of interest today, and for me, I think we put in the second half one cross that didn't either go out for a goal kick or that didn't hit the first defender and was almost causing Samaras to get on the end of it. Now, he didn't make good connection. I think the Inverness guy actually cleared it when it had been crossed in. But if you're going the whole of the second half and you've made one decent cross in from the right or left-hand side that's caused them any kind of concern, that's not good enough. You know what I mean? I mean, I've watched Lustig and Commons and whoever else the hell it was out in the right or left hoofing the ball and just totally making a mess of it. Now, in fairness, in the first half, Commons made a real mess of a good one-on-one, and so did Lustig. Now, those 2 goals go in, that's a different game. But it was so pedestrian. And it's so pedestrian at home so often. There is such a lack of pace in that team at times. If Samaras isn't running and getting the pace in the team, there isn't anybody else doing it. Gary Hooper was all over the place today. And Chris Commons was trying, but just was not. He was just having a bad game.
I think he was trying too hard. I think he was trying too hard. He was shouldering a lot of the responsibility and trying to link things up. I thought Samaras, as he's redeveloped into this player that likes to drift inward when he's trying to play the left side of the midfield, that leaves space open on that left-hand side. And when he drifts inward and Gary Hooper drops back deep, there's congestion there. Nobody knows where they're supposed to be going. Samaras with his back to goal, and he receives the ball at his feet. He's going to get pushed over. He's not going to get the call. He's going to hold his hands above his head. And, you know, the play goes down the other end of the pitch. And you see it time and again. If Samaras is going to play, he needs to be pegged to the left touchline for a ball played out in front of him. That's his singular outlet. And anything aside from that is going to be a detriment to the side.
That's true. I mean, I know fair play to Samaras midweek getting that goal. It was a good goal. It was down to the delivery as well. But, I mean, even look at the game midweek. Charlie comes off at half-time ill, and he's playing again. Have we not got 1 or 2 kids? I mean, even put Matthews to right back, put Lustig in the middle with Effie Ambrose, because he's done it before.
Could do it.
And put Joe Chalmers to left back. Give these guys the chance to recover, because they're probably all going to have to go again on Wednesday night in Edinburgh.
Oh, no question. You know Neil Lennon's going to pick essentially this same core group of players, and I'm just praying he doesn't pick Scott Brown.
Oh, I don't think he will pick Scott Brown. But that, today, we're missing a lot of players at the minute as well. We still miss. I really think we've been missing Anthony Stokes for quite a while.
Yeah, I think that's starting to come around. You know, a lot of the support likes to slag Anthony Stokes, in spite of the fact. I mean, a lot of our supporters like to slag Anthony Stokes even when he's fit, on form, and scoring goals for us. But he's not good in the big games. Oh, he's fine, you know, away to Dunfermline, but you know, I wouldn't play him in a game against strangers. And now there's this, you know, comment about he'd never get in the side for a European tie. Well, let's think back to the game last year against Rennes, who they are no mugs, playing at Celtic Park, and he scored a brace. Let's not forget that. You know, I mean, people look for excuses. Not everybody, but there is a core group of people who look for excuses to slag Anthony Stokes, and when you provide them evidence to negate that, it's that's everything aside. You know, but I think you're absolutely right. I think we do miss an element of what he provides, which is a striker who can create his own opportunities and provide more of that activity when Gary Hooper isn't feeling like he's interested, which is becoming far too common for my liking at this point.
Well, the partnership between Stokes and Hooper, very few people would disagree that that's a good partnership when it's on form, and when it's not, it's the same as anything else. But the number of goals that Stokes made for Hooper, I think that's overlooked a little bit, you know? And I know Samaras has had his purple patch, if you like, but he's again, he went away with Greece and he got injured and he came back. I think he came back too early. Now, I know players are very much, we want to play, but sometimes I think the manager has to kind of say to them, look guys, we need you for the X, Y and Z, and if it's the Champions League we're trying to get into the next stage, we need those guys at the top of their game, because when they are at the top of their game, they're very, very good players. Like the other night in Lisbon, there's 2 combinations in that. One, Benfica are very, very good at home and played us very well. And the second thing is, I think at least 3 of those players were not at the peak of their ability and fitness. Charlie Mulgrew proved it. Samaras was, goal aside, a little bit shambolic. And Hooper, for me, was a gamble with the manager, and he wasn't fit enough when somebody else should have played. Now, I think these are legitimate criticisms of team and manager. I don't think I'm going over the score here.
No, I agree.
I think that these things should be brought into our discussions. And I think they're fair enough. I'm not having people standing screaming at the manager after what he has to put up with in Scotland. I'm not having that. And I'm not having people telling him, that's not right. But coming and saying to him, look, why are you doing this, Neil? Why this? Why that? And I think those are more legitimate ways of expressing your disappointment.
I agree completely. Snake, great call. Thanks for calling in, and hopefully we'll catch up with you soon. All right, pal?
Yeah, man, no problem. Hail, both of you in the Rev. Have a good weekend if possible.
You too.
I've got a bunch of kids coming over to play Resident Evil with me tomorrow. So
enjoy that, pal.
Weekend.
Good stuff, pal. All the best.
See you, guys. Bye.
Snake Plissken calling it from Slovakia. Snake brings up another. Well, I mean, we've touched on this. You look at the great managers in European football. We'll say. I mean, I'll point to Alex Ferguson. With Alex Ferguson, he's not afraid to sit a striker who's off form at a particular moment. He's not going to play, Javier Hernandez every single game. He's not going to play Van Persie every single game. I mean, he's definitely not going to play any player when they're off form. He's not going to play Valencia every game. He's not going to play every game. There needs to be an element of rotation. There needs to be an element of accountability. Look, son, if you're not coming out on the pitch and bringing it, then you're gonna find your time very hard to come by. And at the moment, we don't have that with Neil Lennon. Neil Lennon has his core group of players who are either half fit or off the boil, and he's sticking with them in the same sort of squalid tactics that just don't suit an SPL tie. In certain elements, they're suited to a Champions League tie, but I think that the transmission's gotten stuck in between second and third. We're playing that more of a bunkering style that would suit a European opponent, when in the SPL we're going to have the majority of the possession, and we need to have that cutting edge. We don't have it. And Neil Lennon needs to have more accountability so that we can, if it's a problem of motivation, if it's the players aren't hungry enough, then that needs to be reinstituted. And how we do that is by dropping players. We're now joined by Sean. Sean, you're live on the Beyond the Waves Celtic Football Show. Hello, pal.
How you doing, mate? You all right?
Yeah, not too bad. Hanging in there, all things considered. What are your thoughts after the game today?
To be fair, mate, I've got to echo almost everything Snake just said, really. I don't think people should be calling for Neil Lennon or screaming from the sidelines, but yeah. I do think he's got to stand up and answer some questions. It's for the boys who are going to Parkhead. I'm in London, as you can probably tell, but for the people going to Celtic Park week in, week out, it's just not good enough. And I think I share the same view as you, seeing what you're putting on Twitter. I'm getting sick to the back teeth of people almost allowing these performances to happen. As you said earlier, you question a player's commitment, and all of a sudden you're an arse, and you've got tweets flying at you as if to say, you weren't there. How can you have an opinion? And I think sometimes, without trying to go into a rant, because obviously, I am passionate about it, but as Snake just said, pull some of these people off the park. Don't even put them on from the start. And at least then, if you've got players, and correct me if you think I'm completely wrong here, but when you've got people like Twazik and McGeoch and people like that who are sitting on the sidelines, and you think they seem as if they've run through a brick wall, and then you've got other players who sort of turn up one day when they want to and know that they're flavour of the month, so they're going to get a game. These people need to know that that's not going to happen, and that's my opinion. I mean, would you agree with that, or is that just my emotion running high? Or?
No, I think everything you said is absolutely bang on just there. I mean, you get a lot of backlash. First off, Neil Lennon makes the comments after the game, which I thought were bang out of order. No matter how you try and put them in the context, whether or not he was trying to say that his reputation with the support is ultimately going to decide how tenable his position is, or if he's saying, right, if you don't like me and if you don't like the job I'll do, right, then I'm off down the road. Well, either way, I thought they were bang out of order. All it's going to do is open up more questions for him to answer, when he's already got a completely full plate. Now, with that being said, you see people on Twitter, like you said, just sort of engaging on ideas. What's going wrong at this point? And make no mistake, it is going wrong, and we're seeing a trend of this. There's a data point here that's shaping up that is highlighting a trend. So it's fair.
Not just that though. It's the fact that it's and I don't want to go over the top. I'm really annoyed tonight, but it's the fact that it's acceptable. It's becoming. It seems to me that it's becoming acceptable, and in my opinion, it's not. It's not acceptable to go onto that park, pull on that Hope jersey, and work for half an hour of a 90-minute game. You may as well not be there for an hour. And at the end of the day, I think there's too many people doing that on what we would claim are the smaller occasions, i.e., Inverness, Caledonian Thistle at home, and not to take anything away from them, because that's what I want to see against every team.
Well, there's two sides of this. You have certain people coming out and having to go, at certain comments where you say, oh, well, just because we're Celtic supporters, we shouldn't expect to win every game. It's not even about that, though. It's about, it'd be one thing if the team turned up on the day and, they were excellent, and they're displaying excellent and they put in a good shift, a good performance, and they just came up against the better side. Fair play. But when you see a team turn up week after week and look disinterested, and they can't they can't wait a pass, they can't complete a 5-yard pass, they can't link the ball up, just schoolboy errors, happening week after week, that to me is unacceptable. I think us as supporters are entitled to have our say about it. There's another aspect of this saying, people shouldn't. There's so many people right now who are coming out and saying it's a disgrace that people are sending out tweets saying that Neil Lennon should be sacked. Well, I haven't seen one tweet saying Neil Lennon should be sacked. The only tweet that I've seen is Neil Lennon saying if the fans want him out, then he'll leave. I haven't seen one person say, right, Lennon's got to go. I don't think anybody. I said this before. I don't think any right-minded supporter right now is saying that Neil Lennon should be sacked or he should resign or whatever. But we're asking for answers. We're asking for accountability, and we're asking for something different because this is not working.
Exactly, and it's like your man Snake said before. If you've got someone like Joe Chalmers coming on and he makes a mistake at the back, and you say, you know what, we're trying to blood a new team here, or we're sort of promoting from within. We're trying to get people with passion for the club moving up, and so on and so forth. I agree with that, but I just think more of our players need to step up, and they do, and I'll probably be shot down for this. And I love the guy as much as anybody else, but Paddy's got to stop being a bit part and really sort of really start making a difference. Start pushing to start a game. And people like Ibrahim, there was people celebrating. We've got the best Nigerian wonder kid ever to come out of Nigeria. And the only thing I've seen him do is walk around with an SPL trophy.
Yeah, he's there. Whenever we win a big game, he's there celebrating, and the guy celebrates like nobody's business. But we haven't seen anything of him. We used to even get some footage of bounce games that he played, and I don't remember seeing any of them even as of late. I think you're absolutely spot on. We have a game against Arbroath coming up next week. Are we really going to play the same side?
Let's get the kids in, get them out there.
See what we have.
Exactly, 100%.
Yeah, no question. Sean, you sound like you know what you're talking about. Let me get your thoughts on the Green Brigade. We haven't talked about this at all, with good reason. Okay. It was really all on the park today. But the Green Brigade, boycotted the game today, obviously you could tell the difference. Certainly the atmosphere was quite a bit different. There's a lot of folk who are I mean, just shockingly, I've even seen tweets coming out saying, right, the Green Brigade are at fault, today, and they pick and choose what game they're going to be, turning up to, and I even admitted myself, I hate the fact that they're boycotting the game, but given what they're up against, and given the sort of abuse that they've incurred from the police, I fully support their right and their effort to try and defend themselves any way that they know how. I mean, they're really limited in terms of what kind of leverage they have. They've already bought their season book, so they can't really hit the club and the pocketbook. But in terms of sending a message, this is really all that they're left with. There's a lot of people, who also say, oh, they get everything that's coming to them, and they're, if they're pulled, then it's justified, and et cetera, et cetera. They should send the message back to the police by being defiant. Well, let me ask you something. These people who say the Green Brigade should be defiant and keep going, and by boycotting, they're only succumbing. Let me ask these people, have you ever been pulled up by the police and held for 18 hours, where you were held out of your work, perhaps, putting your employment at risk, where you had family obligations, where you needed to turn up for, and you stand trial, that the charges are thrown out, and this happens week after week. Let me ask you, if this was happening to you week after week, would you continue doing the same thing and being pulled up and having your own money and your own sort of financial position being jeopardized by trumped up charges? Would you do that? I mean, I think that there's a lot of rock throwing at glass houses, and there's a lack of willingness to try and walk in the shoes of these boys. They've been nothing but great for this club, and some of the people who have refused to look, if you don't support them, fair play, but to come out and say things like, these boys deserve everything that's coming to them, and they're at fault. I mean, it's just a disgrace. What are your thoughts?
You know what? I'm dumbfounded, really, with this. And let me just start by saying I support those boys 150%. And if there's anything I could do to help in that cause, then I would do it. And I don't mean I'll go there every week and be a member of the Green Brigade. I'm not interested in the fame of that. What I'm saying is, I went to, it wasn't last season, last season, I went to the Atletico Madrid game. Now, I don't get up from London much because of what I do, okay? And I just so happened to be down the other end of the stadium. They're rocking in their corner. And on one, in front of me, and this was against Atletico Madrid, so if anybody's listening, they'll understand, I've never got so wet at a football game. I've never been so cold, and I've never seen such a dire performance on a football pitch. But you know what? Those phenomenal. And when they started singing and waving their flags, it really, really put a shiver down my spine, And I think if anyone can stand there, okay, and say that they are bad for our football club, then they, in my opinion, should hang themselves in shame. Because the things they go through, and I think you're talking about your man who was in Liverpool, he had his laptop taken.
Yeah, they're chapping his door.
Yeah, they chapped at his door. 150 miles away in Liverpool, and it was a routine check. I mean, do me a favour. How many people live in Glasgow that go to Celtic games that could have been routine checked? There's thousands. It's just rubbish. It's farcical. And I went on the 25th of March, when we actually got beat by the Huns at Ibrox 2-0, but we all turned up in fancy dress. We all turned up, like zombies and the Grim Reaper and stuff like that. And there were police, the treatment of some of our fans, okay, and I don't know if these were Green Brigade or not, but the treatment of some of the fans was just absolutely disgusting from what I saw. I saw two boys, okay, and I don't want to go on about the point, but I saw two boys, we were walking up to the stadium with them. Everyone's seen the video of the coffin on YouTube. We were just behind that. We got to the stadium, they're sitting there, standing there about to go in these zombie costumes, and the police pull them and say, no, you can't go in with that. And they say, why not? And they say, it's inflammatory. And they're saying, well, look, I mean, he's got a no surrender flag over there. Yeah, that's not inflammatory. And he's saying, well, hold on a minute. And he said, look, if you want to go in, you can't wear your costume. So the two lads said, all right, took the costumes off and went in their pants. Went in their socks, pants and trainers. And I kid you not, they were about 2 blocks away from me, and all through the game, they were just an absolute joy to watch, because you know what, they just didn't care. But the point I'm making is, if this is happening every single week to the same people, and we've all seen the barricade around the Green Brigade in 111, right? You don't, only a blind man can see what they go through week in, week out. And you know what I'd say? Keep it up, boys, because you know what, you're an absolute credit to our football club, and they are. No question. You know, and listen, you know, the other question is, you know, what are they hoping to achieve from this? Well, you know, I think what was very indicative of the relationship between the Green Brigade and the club was revealed earlier this week with Celtic's very strongly worded statement. You know, and okay, I'm glad that the club came out and said something, but once again, you see a statement from the club, and yes, I'm going to have a go at the board again. So if that, you know, is you know, a bugaboo of yours or a problem, you know, with myself or the show, then you should turn the show off now. But I've just had it. The club comes out once again with you know, this tough hard man, watered down statement, you know, all these strong words, and leaves more questions than answers. You know, they come out and they talk about the fact that they had nothing to do with any sort of harassment with supporters. Well, first off, we have no idea what specifically they're talking about. They refuse to refer to the Green Brigade by name. You know, and they have this sort of stigma that they've attached to the Green Brigade because of some of the banners that they've put up and because of some of the statements that they've made. Well, fair play. You know, I don't think that they've ever made a statement that was you know, against the law or you know, yes, they. But can I just cut in with? And
they never said anything that was a lie either.
Yeah, sorry, Sean, go ahead. Can I just cut in with what you've just said? You're absolutely right. They've never actually named them. Okay, they've never actually publicly thank them, okay, but they've never actually publicly come out and said, okay, and I was one of the guys, I only gave a tenner, all right, it's nothing big, but you know what, we all done it because we knew there was something special. I gave a tenner for the, on paper, just for the display against Barcelona, right, but what the club didn't point out in the statement, right, is that something that was completely manufactured and went global, and I had family in Singapore ringing me in the middle of the night and saying to me, I've just seen this on the telly and I cannot believe what I'm watching. That is absolutely superb. And you know what pisses me off is the fact, and part of my language, you can see I feel really strongly about this, is the fact that Celtic didn't then come out and say, but we are happy to make 45 quid off of every stadium photo that we sell thanks to the Green Brigade. Exactly. And I know the Green Brigade don't want to take money from the club, and that's admirable. But you know what? Let's just appreciate these people, because what they do for our club is second to none. And you know what? I guarantee, I bet you bottom dollar, if they were in that stadium today, 1-0 down, 25 minutes to go, that place would have been bouncing. And no question. You know? I mean, we've seen it. We've seen it time and again. And all they're asking for, look, there are avenues. There needs to be a discussion. First off, the club needs to acknowledge the fact that we have a passionate supporters group, and Peter Lowa can refer to them as the kids down in the corner as much as he wants. But the club needs to recognize the fact that they exist. They need to recognize them by name. And if there is a problem, you know, then the club comes out and says this is categorically false. And if there's any issue, let us know, and we'll be there to support you. Well, if they have the wherewithal to know and to learn about, you know, these claims being hoisted at the club, then certainly they have the wherewithal to see these same mediums, Twitter, the message boards, etc., to learn exactly what these boys are going through. They know about it. Come on, they think that we're stupid. Exactly, but it's not only that, and I'm getting so wound up talking about it, but it's, you know what? In London, you don't have many people who actually know what these boys do for our club. And I think some people in Glasgow think that they just want to be a little famous ultra section who sit in the corner and make loads of noise and all their friends love them because they're part of the Green Brigade. It's deeper than that. They didn't just turn up and ask for a membership. Because if it's anything like my roots, I was brought up in London, okay, to be a Celtic supporter. Now, I didn't ask for that. I didn't turn up one day and go, you know what, I'm going to be a Celtic supporter. I wasn't allowed to be anything else, and I'm thankful for that. But the point I'm trying to make is, these aren't some kids, right, that have just joined a gang, right? And they're not killing people, they're not stabbing people, they're not organising fights, or as far as I'm aware, could stand corrected. But the point that I'm making is that everything they do is directly correlated with our club. And if the club are happy to make money out of our history, then why can't they celebrate it as a group as well? Or do you not agree that the hypocrisy there is just dumbfounds me? It just passes over my head. I can't understand how we can make money out of these people, yet fail to give them any recognition. And I think Neil Lennon going over into the corner last year and putting the trophy in front of them was maybe a way of saying, you know what, I made some bad comments after that European tie in Udinese, but you know what, I do appreciate you guys, and I appreciate everything that you've helped me through. You know, but I don't know. I feel like I'm ranting now because I'm just so pissed off about it. You know, I don't know where I would start or stop if I was to sit in the ballroom. You know, I really don't.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm glad you said that because I was just gonna say that's pretty much the only recognition that they've gotten was Neil Lennon bring the trophy over like that. I mean, and yeah, being in that kind of group and mindset myself. Over here, we're not doing it for the fame, for the recognition or anything. I mean, anything that comes, sure, it's a bonus, that's great. But, just to be able to, just want to do what we do without, any outside intervention, and it's not, again, it's not like it's anything illegal for the most part that we do. So why there's, this crackdown on it's just unnecessary and unwarranted.
Yeah, and
yeah, totally.
I also want to respond to we're dedicating a fair amount of time to this, but I think it's worthwhile. There's a fair amount of people who I think are spiteful towards the Green Brigade and say, oh, they're always making it about them and not the club, and they're always bringing up these political things and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's not about the Green Brigade. It's because they are Celtic supporters. That's why I'm upset. I'm in no worship of the Green Brigade because they're the Green Brigade. I'm in worship of the Green Brigade because they're fantastic Celtic supporters who turn up every game and just sing for 90 minutes straight, who bring worldwide attention to this club. So for me, that's worthwhile, my support. That's worthwhile, my defense. And if you want to be spiteful because they've gotten attention, then that's completely up to you. But it's not about making it about the Green Brigade. These are Celtic supporters just like everybody else. And if it was me, I'd want fellow Celtic supporters. No, I would expect Celtic supporters to have my back.
Exactly. And you know what? These guys away from football on a Saturday, and I don't know anyone, so I don't know anybody who claims to be in the organisation, establishment, whatever you want to call it, okay? But these people are just normal human beings who are going through recession. They're struggling to pay their mortgage, to hang on to their jobs, and every so often they want to go to Celtic Park and wave a flag and let off some aggression, let off some steam in a positive way, not to be spiteful or rude, but to support our club and raise the profile of it.
Yeah, that's just it.
Why do that? Why do that to people? Because you know what? They will be there long after anybody who sits in that boardroom, right? And their heritage has been there long before anyone in that boardroom. And they need to remember that.
Very well said, Sean. Very well. Thank you so much for calling in. Don't be a stranger. Great stuff. You know your stuff, and hopefully we'll hear from you soon.
Yeah, nice one. Cheers, chaps. Have a good one.
Cheers. Hello.
Later.
That's Sean calling in from London, and we got some chat in the chat room. Some folks saying that was Rod Stewart in disguise. He did sound a bit like Rod. Was that you, Rod? He's calling in. I'm glad that we did devote a segment of time to this issue because it's certainly been something that has been weighing on my mind this week. With today's result notwithstanding, I mean, what were your thoughts? As all of this developed, Rev. Let's hear from you. The club comes out, like I said, just another ham-handed, tough guy statement. The club is just outraged that anyone would make this claim, and the club had nothing to do with any sort of harassment of fans. We had the statement come out from the Gov and Emerald CSC, as well as what happened with the Green Brigade. The club does nothing to clarify exactly what they're talking about. And it's just another one of these they love taking the safe road. They love not mentioning certain things that may cause them any sort of peril, like acknowledging that the Green Brigade would exist. And by proxy, by doing that, they're essentially saying that the Green Brigade aren't part of the Celtic support, in my opinion. And because if they were, and if they actually did appreciate, the marketing element that has been brought to the club as a result of their efforts, they would at least acknowledge that they exist, bring them into the tent, and then facilitate some of these discussions back and forth with the police. This Celtic is involved in we got Scott joining us now. Scott, turn your speakers down for us. You have Celtic involved in discussions with the police repeatedly. We had this summit right after the Orca in a tracksuit decided to square up to Neil Lennon. We had this summit where all these draconian laws came out because Alex Salmon needed something to prop up his platform. Okay, so I don't want to hear this. Celtic doesn't have a say in this or a seat at the table. What they need to do is engage with the Green Brigade, acknowledge that they exist, and talk to them about where maybe some of the disconnect is amongst themselves, and then facilitate a sit down with the police so that we can sort this out. Be a partner. These are Celtic supporters. Okay, forget the Green Brigade. Forget them as a separate entity and separating themselves. They are Celtic supporters. Okay, and they need to be treated as such. That's why they have my support. Scott,
like you said, you bring them in the tent. It's better to have them inside of the tent pissing out than outside of the tent pissing in.
Lovely LBJ quote. Scott, Yampi's joining us all the way from the Garden State, just outside of Philadelphia. Yamp, this is another tough weekend. We have a lackluster result, and then we have Monday Night Football coming up for our beloved Eagles. It doesn't get any better. Your thoughts?
It's a fucking disaster all the way around, it seems.
Your thoughts, pal?
The fucking weekend couldn't get done fast enough. I was a little disappointed today. Not a good result at all. Looked like everybody was just pretty much going through the motions. You know how I felt about my boy Commons today. I thought you guys were a little generous with him. He couldn't hit the fucking ocean if he fell out of a boat. It was just, other than I think Lustig did okay. Kyle looked nice. He didn't look soft for once. Is there anybody else? Ambrose did okay too. Looked nice saving that one goal. I thought it was real nice that the club tweeted how great the defense was when it was a clusterfuck at the back that resulted in a 2-on-1 and a shot on the empty net at the fucking moron from ICT butchered. If Ambrose didn't get back there to save that, it's like, is that really good defense?
Yeah, 2-0. Yeah, no question. I think it was Charlie that went after the man with the ball, which, instead of going for the runner, he went at the man with the ball, which he never should have done. And Ambrose did, exceptionally well to track back and prevent it from being 2-0. I mean, if it went to 2-0, the game was essentially over. But I think that, the real shortcoming of the day and of these past several weeks is just absolutely no teeth in open play. We're scoring all of our goals. I mean, who would ever thought? We're scoring all of our goals at the moment from set pieces, which is something that we struggled with for years. Now all of a sudden from open play we can't get anything going, and I think a lot of it has to do with sticking with an unfit, out of form Gary Hooper when we have a dynamic, young, up and coming striker in Tony Watt, and why he was substituted when, for me, Samaras, Commons, or Hooper, you could pick any one of them. Any one of them were completely useless today.
I love Scotty Brown, but if he was a fucking horse, they'd have shot him by now. I mean, he's running basically on one leg out there. Why Watt came out? I mean, it's like I'm still not sure he came out. I mean, it's like, are you fucking serious, dude? Like, I don't want to be a negative Nancy because, oh my God, there'll be people pissing and moaning on fucking Twitter and you can't say anything negative. This is our club, love it or leave it. God for fucking bid, you have an opinion or some sentient activity in your fucking head. And it's brutal. It's like this form after Champions League games has just been somewhere. It's like hot trash. I mean, they come out there, they go through the motions. There's maybe 2 or 3 guys that are mildly interested. Commons isn't interested at all unless he's got the ball at his feet and he's fucking banging away from 35 yards out. I mean, he's like, he might as well give him that hot dog shooter you see at baseball games. He's like sending balls in the crowd like fucking souvenirs and everything. I mean, it's like everybody gets one. It's like, oh, here's Commons. Hold on, my kid might get a free ball today.
I mean, we have to start playing the kids. Surely, we've been calling for this for weeks and weeks. But I mean, we have to start playing the kids. They're hungry, and that's what's missing at this point. If these players are tired, give them a rest. Put the kids in. Let them show you what you can do. You just might be surprised.
Well, Lenny seems to have like some kind of like hang up about like, giving them a shot or whatever. I mean,
doesn't trust the kids.
It's and he's not the only manager to do that. I mean, you see that all throughout sports that they're just not willing to take a chance on playing youth. They'd rather defer to like experience and everything.
Got to trust the kids.
I mean, but yeah, I get it and everything. I mean, my problem is not with Lenny so much. I mean, again, I think he's good enough and everything. Just I think sometimes my bigger criticism of him is that when he needs to make adjustments, that he's really slow to do them. It's like, waiting till the fucking 80th minute, 70th, 80th minute when you see that shit's not working, it's all of a sudden you're under time constraints there, man. And everybody's like, what the fuck is someone going to do? Maybe get 1 or 2 touches when they come in with like 15 minutes to go? I mean, how much of a change are you going to make?
Yeah,
if
I
it's
agree.
just not working after halftime, you gotta start moving bodies.
Agree completely, and it needs to be thought out. I mean, if you're chasing the game, you bring on a half-fit central midfielder. Yes, he's the captain of the side, but I mean,
that was a fucking quagmire today.
I
mean, that formation was like I said, 4-1, go to fuck where you want. I mean, it's just like everybody running around like they're fucking lost in space and everything.
What happened to the 3-5-2? I mean, especially when we're down a goal, why not, not only, make some substitutions, but change the formation up, throw, ideally, keep Watt in, if you want to keep Gary Hooper in, whatever, or make a sub, throw in Patty, take off Matthews, throw Patty up, get Commons right behind the 2 of the strikers. Come on.
Yeah, and you know what? That's a good point there, Rev. Where this is a frustrating element. There's 2 sides of the Barcelona tie. Prior to playing Barcelona, Lennon seemed to be more willing to experiment with different tactics to suit, who was fit, who was on form. We saw the Christmas tree being displayed, quite well, especially against Spartak Moscow. We played a 4-3-2-1 or even a variant of like a 4-3-1-2, and then obviously went up against Barcelona, played more of a 4-5-1, and we've stuck essentially in either a 4-5-1 or a 4-4-2 ever since, and we really haven't sort of tried to break out of that and facilitate some sort of link up that would compensate for the lack of James Forrest and Emilio Ezagiri, and it's cost us.
Well, a couple people mentioned it too, Stokes being out, and was he still like 2 weeks away or some shit like that?
He's going to start training in a couple of weeks, but I mean, when's the last time he kicked the ball? His muscles probably atrophied. He's not going to be ready until the middle of January, I would expect.
Yeah, it's a big ask to have him in before the new year and everything, and it's just, I mean, you can't understate that too. They're definitely dinged up a bit, but I mean, the lack of organization, the lack of motivation, that definitely falls on the manager. I mean, you can't come out there and be unprepared, whether it's a Champions League game or just a regular, SPL game. I mean, they have to be ready to play. You have business to take care of, and if you don't fucking do that, then you're going to look like a bag, and that's what they look like today.
Yeah.
Can I say it since it's the 3 of us? Because of our lack of striker form and fit players and everything, and the comments yesterday and the day before, it looks more likely that we might actually go after Agudelo.
All right, Yampi, let me get your thoughts on this, and let me preface this with my take here as well. And I know a lot of people have asked us, obviously, with us being American, we have more familiarity with Juan Agudelo. He's training with Celtic at the moment, and he's showing a bit of promise, which is surprising, pleasantly to me. I certainly didn't think that this was going to end in anything overly positive, but I was certainly hoping for that. With that being said, Neil Lennon has come out and said that he's been very impressive, talking about Agudelo, obviously, and he's going to meet with some of his representatives over the next couple of weeks. My take is, given the MLS's record of letting young stars go, he's going to be priced out. I mean, what the MLS is going to want in terms of compensation is going to far exceed what Celtic is going to be willing to part with in order to get his services. That's just my take. When you read STV and all the media outlets saying Celtic's going to be in with a bid for Juan Agudelo, I would say the chances of Juan Agudelo donning a Celtic jersey on a permanent basis are maybe about 5%. Given that they're going to want a lot of money for him, and Celtic aren't going to pay it. Yampy, what are your thoughts?
Well, Rev probably has better thoughts on it than I do. Usually when Agudelo played, I was pretty much resorted to just calling him like a pussy and everything because he played for the Red Bulls. But I always thought he was like pudding soft. I mean, dude's like 6'2". He's built like Tarzan and played like Jane. I mean, no fucking real heart. I mean, it's like, I thought he was awesome. He didn't really ever do shit to Philly, so he kicked my ass. I mean, what do you think, Rev? That's your boy.
No, not my boy at all. I mean, I call him a pussy, but for different reasons.
I mean, he did show a lot of promise early on. He's soft, and I just don't think that lends itself to the style of play in Scotland. I mean, if he's
like the land of misfit toys, man. He's got all these intangibles that you think would equate into being this really awesome player and everything, but he just never seems to meet all that kind of potential and everything.
Well, I think it's
end up being like a Freddie Adu of another.
It's a decent analogy. I think it's the tragic case of a player who believes all of the hype and then feels as though they've already reached their full potential and don't need to work any harder to improve. And that's what we're seeing with Agudelo. But instead of not working to improve, he's actually regressed. And the opposition that he goes up against figures out how to sort of mark him out of the game, and he becomes a bit more frustrated, petulant, etc. That obviously reduces the amount of effectiveness. I saw a statistic where I believe he scored 9 goals in his past 53 games. So that essentially tells you what sort of strike rate we have with it. Not that listen, I don't want to be overly critical of especially an American player, but with that being said, I'm not going to blow smoke up anybody's ass because he's American, and I want to sort of
honest here.
I want to sort of temper the expectations of a lot of people who say, right, it seems like we have a decent player here. Yes,
Tony Watt has better probably goals to games ratio and shit. So it's like, well, whose time is he going to chew into? I mean, if he actually did sign, you got to say, okay, who's going to sit to allow him to find his motivation to play.
Yeah,
I'm not ready to do that. I think they have better talent on the club already, and I don't give a fuck if he's American, Martian, or whatever. He can kiss my ass. If he's not going to help the club, then fuck off.
Yeah. You're listening to Beyond the Wave Celtic Football Show, and if you don't like it, you can kiss our ass.
You can get to fuck or whatever the fuck I understand. I don't have the whole banging and all that shit down, but I mean, it's like, I probably should stop cursing so much.
Hey, well, it's free radio. We're not under the purview of the FCC. Scott, before we let you go, what's the status of your? You ordered the 125th anniversary kit. What was it about 3 years ago?
You want to wind me up now before I go fucking there now? Winding me up.
I mean, before you leave, let's get you up in a lather. Go ahead. What's the status with that?
Well, apparently nothing that comes from Scotland can fucking make it to the U.S. in any proper form or fashion. I mean, it's not a knock on Scottish people or anything. I think you guys are fantastic, except most of the Scottish people I tend to run into are like Rangers fans, and they can all kiss my fucking ass too. I got an email from the club, from Celtic, and it's been over 2 months since I ordered my 125th anniversary top. And, I mean, I could have fucking walked the ocean like Jesus and got the goddamn thing before, this amount of time went by.
Impressive.
And I thought it was just a little odd that it took so long. And apparently they've been justifying it with this, oh, well, you're a bigger guy and we don't normally carry normal big guy sizes, but we took your fucking money anyway thing. So they sent me an email the other day, and it says, "Hi, Scott. Many thanks for contacting me. I have been looking into this for you. The 3XL shirt that you had ordered had recently only been delivered, which has been the delay in getting the order out. We're looking to resolve this issue as soon as possible. But I have noted that you requested to have the following printed onto your shirt, Sans 81. We deem this as a political statement and cannot print this onto your shirt. Is there any other name that you'd like in its place? Regards, I'm not going to say the dude's name, but then they give you that real funky European 50-digit phone number with Celtic Park, Glasgow, G43RE, whatever the postal code shit is. So, yeah, apparently it's not so much a shirt size issue. It's apparently what I wanted on the shirt. It's not like a curse word or anything, or ha-ha huns or anything like that.
Although I'll bet you could probably get a curse word, and they wouldn't bat an eyelash.
I mean, what if my fucking name was Sands or something, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
and you were born in 1981.
Yeah, I know. God for fucking bit, huh?
You should ask them. You just ask them to put "kiss my ass."
Well, I mean, like, why not just give me a name on an approved list of people that might be political or might not be political, names that I can use or not use to get printed on my personalized jersey that I spent, if you translate to American, about $150 fucking for.
Yeah, and so, a couple of things compounding this, where you have just another crackerjack job by the Celtic Superstore in terms of their customer service and making sure that the delivery is followed up on, and we're not left in the dark here. So not only have you had to wait this amount of time, but now they're going to give you a hassle about what you want on the shirt. Like you said, there's no curses or anything. What if I wanted Obama 44 on there? Are they not going to put that?
This wouldn't even be an issue in the States. Are you kidding me? And they say, oh, Americans are so sensitive and da-da-da-da-da. And it's like, are you fucking kidding me, right? It's Sans. Sans. Yeah, you know what it means. I mean, let's not beat around the bush. But holy shit. I mean, what am I going to do? See other Americans when I'm walking around my shirt? Maybe 95% of them ignorant fucks won't know what the hell it means, but I mean, it's personal to me. It means something to me. And it's significant to me. And to ask me to sit there and say, oh, is there any other name you'd like in its place? I mean, like, serious? Like, I mean, why bother? Why bother? I wouldn't, it's like everybody's telling me, just tell me you want your money back. Tell me you want your money back. And I want the top, but I want something that's, special to me.
Well, not to, justify them, but I can see, I can at least see what they're thinking of, because that, the top represents the club, and the name's going to be on the club, so even though people won't know what it is, that will be like, walking around with a billboard saying, just making up a billboard with, Mitt Romney's face saying, I approve this message, and then him saying something outlandish. But that being said, I don't agree with it. However, I have, a place on eBay that I've gotten my own printing stuff for, and I'll send you the information for that, and you can order directly from them. I think they're in Edinburgh.
Right, but do you see how much of a pain in the cock it is? All of a sudden,
well, and the other thing is, I mean,
credit card and everything. Now I got to go bouncing around. Oh, I want this, but I don't want that. So don't charge me for the printing. Don't charge me for express, because I never fucking got the jersey on time anyway. So I can go turn around. You ship it to me, and it takes another week. Then I can ship it back to Scotland again. And that takes another fucking week. And then they can ship it back with the print on there. Maybe it looks the same. Maybe it's not. I don't know. And that costs me more time, more money there too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a name, dude. It's a name.
Yeah.
It's a number and a name.
I'll bet they wouldn't. I'll bet they wouldn't have a problem if you wanted Thatcher on the back, or Lizzie Windsor. They'd happily print that up lickety split, But all of a sudden, Bobby Sands, that's political, like as if it's a bad thing. I mean, please, it's once again the club running from its core support, the core. Sort of mentality of the support, and yes, you can attack me all you want. Oh, the club isn't supposed to be political, et cetera, et cetera. It's very double standards here.
Dude, it's all this hibernification of the front office of trying to root out political statements. We're taking flags, Palestinian flags. We're taking signs. You're not allowed to wear this. When does it become a free society anymore?
Well,
I mean, seriously, dude? I mean, it's like we're taking out Republican songs. We're taking away shirts that are offensive. You can't have that sign. You can't laterally move. You can't do this. When do you fail to become a free fucking human being?
When you leave the United States of America. Scott, and that's just the bottom line. You know, all of these issues are foreign to us because it would never happen here. You know, yes, you can. You know what? You can go to an Eagles game tomorrow and you can yell out, you know, the N-word or any sort of racial slur you want. You will get your fucking ass kicked, but you can do that and you wouldn't get arrested. But it's a completely different legal system there. Where
I get that, dude. I get that, but it's like, I mean, I said I kind of made like a correlation between the two when I said with the Eagles when they moved over to Lincoln Financial Field, they did the same thing to get rid of a certain element that they wanted to by pricing people out with doing little things like $4 a bottle of water, not allowed to bring sandwiches in, not allowed to hang signs anymore, not allowed to hang banners anymore. All of a sudden, it becomes this over-policed freaking environment to the point that it's not even like enjoyable anymore. It just becomes like a process almost that you're just going there. Yes, because I am loyal, I observe the club, and then I get to leave. I get to be told when to stand up, when to sit down, when to cheer, when to applaud, when to wear something that is approved by the club.
Exactly. You come in, you give us all your money, and then you come in and you support the club the way we tell you to. Now get out.
Or get the fuck out. And I mean, that's ridiculous.
Right.
I mean, it's absolutely insane.
Hey, Yampy, let's go out with a bang here. Predictions for Monday night. The Eagles versus the Carolina Panthers.
Jesus Christ. If they score 10 points, it would be somewhere like, it'd be a fucking miracle.
What are the Eagles given, like 2 touchdowns?
Against sorry-ass Carolina, it's probably not that bad, but I mean, it's got to be about 10 points. I'm saying Panthers roll like 31-13. I mean, the Birds blow. I mean, they're just somewhere like south of awful.
Yep.
I mean, somewhere south of awful.
Just keep one thing in mind. Just keep one thing in mind.
I hope they get the number 1 pick in the draft.
Exactly.
They'll probably screw that up too.
Exactly. Just keep one thing in mind, and that is with every Eagles loss, we come that much closer to the number 1 pick in the draft.
They'll screw the pooch with that too. We'll end up like the 5th pick and some sorry-ass nobody making multi-billion fucking dollars or something.
We very well might, but it won't be Andy Reid that makes that decision. But anyway, thanks Yampy for calling in. We'll catch up with you.
Fellas. Hail, hail.
All right, hail, hail. Scott getting in touch, and good call there. If you didn't like it, you can kiss his ass. Good fellow CSC. Now Scott's good people. Just outside Philadelphia area there, South Jersey, and as passionate as you can possibly get. He is huge. That's a big dude there. Like if stuff goes down, it's you that's the first person you look around for. I'll come in and save my skinny ass while the Rev runs. Now the Rev doesn't run. He's got the Doc Martens on. Do a little stomping.
Yeah, you can't really run too well on those anyway.
No, it's true. It's true. It'll slow you down, but I'm sure it gets the calves worked out.
Yeah.
You probably got huge calves. All right. With that being said, we should probably wrap it up. Got 2 hours of that. So, all right. Well, listen. What are you gonna do?
It's Armageddon.
It is. It's Armageddon, and in spite of, I mean, this is atrocious. In summary, it's awful. It's unacceptable, and we're still top of the league. There's time to turn around. But Neil Lennon needs to do a lot more worrying about his team and the tactics that they're going with and the opponent that they're going up against, and he needs to worry less about what people in the stands are shouting. Yeah. That's not going to change the run of results as of late. We support Neil Lennon, and we're behind him, and we're not calling for his resignation or anything else, but this is all going Pete Tong. Nice. And he's in charge. He's the one ultimately accountable. He needs to fix it. So do it. Play the kids.
Play the kids?
Play the kids. Homeboys will probably be back on Monday. Check them out here at hailhailmedia.com. Shout out to everybody at the Bam Pop book launch. Paul Larkin, they probably got the weeks on coming up pretty soon. And Joe McKenna is going to be playing there as well. Spotted on Twitter a lovely plaid that David Harper's wearing tonight. So
I gotta give a shout to Joe. I was just busting his balls on Facebook last night. He's posting how he's on his way up to Glasgow, and I'm like, enjoy the game. I'll be 3,000 miles away with my face smashed against a computer screen. And he's like, oh, I'll get you a program and some badges and stuff. Give me your address. So I got to give him a shout out and a big thanks, and making me feel like a dick.
Very nice, very nice. Anybody who makes the Rev feel like a dick gets a thumbs up. Also want to give a shout out to Big G from the Celtic Dreams show. Celtic Dreams on Spreaker.com. Just search on Celtic Dreams, and you can find them on Twitter at Celtic Dreams 12. Big G cranking out the tunes on Friday, and I believe Free Gelly Boy, that's Liam, who you can see in the chat room most weeks. I think both of them are at the Band Pop Book Lunch tonight, but I think Liam is going to be on Saturday nights. That's the Free Gelly Boys show. We'll be retweeting all the links and stuff for that. Check them out. It's always good crack. Picking up the flag from Halsey, and a shout out to Halsey as well from the Beats to Beat Cancer. Exceptional cause, and hope Halsey's making out and doing well. And you can check out my Movember page, although I just tweet pictures of my just disgusting mustache on Twitter, but you can check out my Movember page at Mobro. It's mobro.co /Graham GRAHAM Wilson 1 for just a disgusting look at a filthy, just creepy mustache. I look like a cop, and but it's worth it. It's for a good cause. So dig deep, and whatever you can spare, donate. It's going to a great cause, prostate cancer awareness and research, which is a cause that's close to my heart. It's affected me in a very personal way this year, and I figure, I need to do something good for the cause, as it were. All right, Rev, 0 points this week, and may God have mercy on your soul.
Yeah, I'm going to need it.
Okay, well, we'll have some news coming up, I guess, pending, so stay tuned for that, and we'll have to sort out logistics for next weekend, and we'll just leave it at that. A little teaser for the listeners, but thanks so much to everyone who actually did tune in this week. I know it's kind of a chore after a loss. The last thing you want to be listening to is people talking about the horrendous performance and all that, but we're glad that you joined us, and some great calls as well, so thanks to all the callers, and got Hearts coming up midweek, so at some point we're going to get it sorted out. It's just a matter of when the hell that's going to happen. So we'll wrap it up. Taking us out as always, Shane McGowan and the Pogues. I'm going to go put up some Christmas decorations and drink. Hail, hail, and keep the faith. We'll talk to you soon.
The island, it is silent now, but the ghosts still haunt the waves. And a torch lights up a famished man who fortune could not save. Did you work upon the railroads? Did you ride the streets of crime? Were your dollars from the White House? Were they from the 5 and dime? Did the old songs start to cheer you, and did they still make you cry? Did you count the months and years, or did your teardrops quickly dry? I know that it was not to be on a copping ship. I came here and I never even got so far that they could change my name. Thousands are sailing across the western ocean to a land of opportunity that some of them will never see. Fortune prevailing across the western ocean, their bellies full, their spirits free. They'll break the chains of poverty, and they'll dance. In Manhattan's desert twilight, in the dead of afternoon, We stepped hand in hand on Broadway, like the first man on the moon. And a blackbird broke the silence as you whistled, it's so sweet. And then Brendan Behan's footsteps, I danced up and down the street. And we said goodnight to Broadway, giving it our best regards. Tipped our hats to Mr. Cohen, dear old Times Square's favourite bird. Then we raised a glass to JF